Welcome to Sovereign Mamas, the podcast sanctuary for visionary women who are building lives, businesses, and legacies in alignment with their feminine power. I'm your host, Julia Jörg, intuitive business coach, mama of two, and systems strategist for solo-led entrepreneurs. Here, we honor both your sacred role as a mama and your wild vision as a changemaker. Expect soul-aligned strategy, raw storytelling, behind the scenes, and powerful conversations that support you in scaling your business without sacrifice. If you're done choosing between success and sovereignty, you're home. Let's begin. Hey, welcome back to the Sovereign Mamas show. And today we talk about wild roots and children in nature. And I'm very curious to go all deep into the questions of how my guest today is raising her child and how it came to this I'd call it revolutionary way of raising children, even though I'm in the same boat doing it just on the other end of the island. Welcome to the show, Dasha. I hope you're wonderful and thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Julia. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, sure. So I already dropped the keywords. You are the founder of Wild Roots. Before we go into what you're doing exactly with your business and what made you create this type of venture, would you like to maybe share a little bit of your background when it comes to the moment where you discovered, okay, I'm in the midst of motherhood maybe, and I feel this urge of creating something aside of my little child?
Yeah, absolutely. I can give a little bit of a backstory.
Mhm.
So I'm originally from Russia and I grew up in Colorado. I moved to America when I was 10. So I already kind of have that immigrant, story of being the new person in the country and assimilating to the culture. And then fast forward to 2016, I had my son and everything really just shifted. I remember finding out I was pregnant and I just kind of stopped doing all the things. I stopped wearing like makeup and was super holistic. I mean, I'd been relatively holistic at that point, but I just kind of like was like, okay, like this is it. And things really shifted from there. So then once I had the baby, I was able to stay home with him for the first 2 years, which I felt like was such a bonding, like, incredible time in my life. And then we continued on and with life, and as life goes, it threw some trials and tribulations at me. So his father and I ended up separating, and we were co-parenting. And then in 2020, actually April 1st of 2020, he died unexpectedly. And at that point, there was nothing tying me to Colorado anymore. I was just ready to go discover a new place. There were so many memories and just so much trauma there. So it's the middle of a pandemic.
Oh,
And
no.
where do I go? And I'd been dreaming, I'd been plotting, I'd been on the Facebook groups reading about, other women, other moms doing these adventures. And I decided, why don't I buy an RV and travel around the country and see where where it lands for me.
Of course.
So that
What do you
yeah,
do?
exactly. What do you do? Just go buy an RV and go around. So that's what I did. West of Colorado was quite closed down and rough. So I went east, kind of southeast, and Missouri was beautiful. Tennessee, North Carolina. It was a wonderful experience with my son. I'd never driven an RV. I'd never done any of these things. So it was just crazy, like learning experiences on the go. I had a pull behind car behind me, which was stick shift. I'd never driven the stick shift before. I'm not really sure what I was thinking, but I went for it. So I guess that's kind of where it really sedimented. Like, yes, there's the contemporary life and there's the alternative. And so I went that route and haven't stopped since.
Oh my gosh, I love this so much. And this is so unexpected too. I feel like, yeah, like so okay, let's go back to that moment when you said, I'm on my own now. Now it's obviously the tragedy was there, the everything, but then you turned it into this power. You turned it into something bold and moved, right? A lot of people probably would have been stuck and like fell into in a paralyzing state. What do you think? What gave you that source of power and resilience in that moment?
Mm, thank you. Thank you for asking that question. I've been pondering on that myself. Um, I think honestly, it just came down to I hadn't really faced death that closely. My grandmother was still alive. I think my grandfather had passed away by then, and we were close, but it still didn't impact me in the same way as having the father of my child just be gone. Like it just whatever, separation issues and like drama we had, it just seemed so minuscule compared to the fact that like he's just not coming back. And I think that's the realization of like life is so short. It,
Yeah.
it, it literally was just so blatantly in my face. It's like you can conceptualize it maybe logically, like rationalize like, oh yeah, live your life because any day you could lose someone, or but when it hits, that impact, I think, is what just made me realize, like, I need to live my life based off of what lights me up and what my dreams are, as opposed to trying to conform to someone else's standard or even, like, keeping up with,
Mm,
whoever it is that in my brain I'm comparing myself to at that moment. And it just became evidently obvious that I no longer belonged in Colorado,
mm,
and so then it came down to, well, where do I belong?
mhm,
And then the adventure started. And then eventually I realized that actually America isn't where I need to be right now.
mhm,
I deeply, deeply appreciate the country that I immigrated to, that my mother brought me to, for everything that it's given me. And I find myself wondering if, maybe I'll go back at some point.
mhm,
But during that time, after doing all the exploring, I realized I wanted to discover another country, and I came to Mexico kind of on a whim. I'd been to all-inclusive resorts so many times, but never really to the towns. And there was a woman in one of the Facebook groups, Single Moms Who Travel, I think is what it used to be called. And
mm,
she was telling everyone that would listen about Playa del Carmen. And I
mhm.
thought, okay, let me go check it out. And when I got there, it was like I knew the land just called to me, and it was like, yep, this is where I belong. And that's kind of where we've been ever since.
Amazing, amazing. I feel like these stories always show how, people resonate with locations. And I've had it in my life also so many times where I just like, you're done with a place and then there's this new magnet, but you have to be open towards it and also like kind of be intuitively led enough so that you are receiving that and then dare to try it out, right? To go and
Yes.
say, just let's just try out. I'm curious, how is your son? Like, how is he not handling it, but how do you observe him growing up like this?
Yeah, yeah, great question. Oh, goodness. I've noticed some little identity crisis situations.
Mm,
Like, when we go back to the States to visit during the summer, usually he tends to get that question of like, where are you from? Where do you live? And sometimes he gets confused. He's like, well, I live in Mexico, but right now I'm here in Denver. And then it's like, what grade are you in? Well, in America, I would be in third grade, but in Mexico, I'm in fourth grade. So, he tries to put things in boxes, as we all do. And
Mm,
sometimes I imagine the box is just not big enough. But honestly, I mean, from all the work that I've done on like reparenting myself and child-led parenting, all of the research on Montessori, as well as just peaceful parenting, I realized that up until about 6 or 7, there is no them. There's just you, and they're
mm,
kind of a part of you.
mm,
And that's how I felt it went in our life. Like he was just happy because mom was happy, so whatever was going on with mom, he kind of absorbed that. And then now he just turned 9 recently. I've
mm,
noticed from about 7 up until now 9, there's that little separation that's taking place. So he's
mm,
kind of separating from me. He has his own opinions, he has his own likes and dislikes. And then there's that slow, gradual return. Like, okay, I'm safe to separate. Oh, now I'm going to come back. So
yeah.
I think for him, the first 7 years it was perfect because I was more regulated. We had, the ocean and the slower lifestyle. And now I'm noticing, yeah,
Mm,
he has those special friends that he wants to stay connected to. It's important for him to be in a school where, he knows people, and he's
mhm,
more individualistic now as opposed to when he was younger. I think it was just far easier in that way. So
mhm,
I'm excited to see what's to come. But I definitely think it's made him more adaptable. Um, and of course, he speaks Spanish now with a Mexican accent, which is
amazing.
so funny to witness. Especially when we go back to the States and then we like go somewhere and all of a sudden he starts speaking Spanish and people are like, why does he sound like he speaks fluent Spanish? I'm like, because he does.
Oh, that's so cute. Oh, wow. Yeah, what a gift, an additional language, right? And I so can relate. I have a 6 and an 8-year-old son, like two sons, like 6 and 8.
Yes.
And the difference, like you say, like I feel there's this magic wall between the 7-year-olds and then transitioning to 8. And then, like, yeah, they become new people. And it's really interesting to watch and observe how suddenly there's this more individual personality coming through and more boldness, brave moves and things, but then coming still back to mama, which I still
Absolutely.
enjoy very much. But yeah, we're entering a
I
new.
wish more people talked about that.
Yeah.
They talk about the terrible twos,
Oh,
and then
yeah.
they're like, everybody prepares for these terrible twos, which really, for me, they came at 3. At 2, he was
Hmm.
just a doll. And then at 3, I was like, oh, you're quite angry
Different.
right now. But then it's like they don't talk about the 7 to 8 transition as much, and it's
True.
important.
True, true, very true. And I wonder what else is coming. I mean, if you talk to teenage parents, they're like, oh, but I'm not looking that far. I'm just taking it step by step. And
Exactly.
yeah, oh wow. Okay, so now you're in Playa del Carmen and you have your son there. He goes to school and s- you are like creating these ventures for families. And I looked at the website. So you host winter camps, and is this now the first year? I wasn't really sure. Is this the first
Yes,
year doing it?
we hosted one last year for winter
Okay.
break. So that was our initial kind of test run, and it went super well. I mean, it was just an incredible experience. Um, so to give you a little backstory,
Yeah, please.
my son has been, I guess I'll use the word obsessed with marine life, just ever since I can remember, even I have photos of him being like a toddler at the aquarium and just like so enthralled, like refused to leave the little area with the fish and the sharks. So the desire to connect with marine life and reptiles, it has just always been innate to him. And I've tried to lead through what he's interested in and like teach him through those things. So I knew marine biology was important to him. So I kind of seeked it out. Initially, when we first moved here, we were trying to figure things out, go to some different activities, and we met Angela, and she runs We Love the Sea, and she does lots and lots of things for the community locally in Puerto Morelos, which is just right outside of Playa. And she is a marine biologist. She's done TED Talks. She's a master's degree level marine biologist. So she's done all of this work, and then she teaches kids. She loves to teach the children. So we used to go to her classes. Yeah. And it was just so incredible for my son. He was like a sponge absorbing all the information.
Mhm.
And I noticed that some of the other kids that maybe weren't as passionate about marine biology were still very engaged because, and of course, this is still my assumptions, but I think I've backed it up with enough experiences now, because they're in it. It's one
Mhm.
thing to be like learning in a classroom, like, here's the cool fish, or even going to an aquarium, but it's still this closed off, kind of created, manufactured experience. But when she's talking about jellyfish and they're in the water and they see a jellyfish, that lands differently in the body.
Mm.
So even if the child's not necessarily, obsessed like mine about marine biology, they're really absorbing that information, and that passion to learn is grows because they're inundated with what they're learning about.
Mhm.
So then I'm like, okay, like this is how we teach kids. And of course, the world schooling movement has been growing, for the
Mhm.
last 5 years. It's been just like beautiful to witness. And I myself have gone to several different hubs around the world, and just really enjoyed how others are orienting in this new space, because it really is. As I find it to be the new wave of learning. Um,
Mhm.
you know, s- uh, from what I've discovered, schooling in itself hasn't really changed in hundreds of years. And so this is our time to like let's shift
Mhm.
the narrative of how we learn, not just the kids, but that's what my camps are. They are a drop-off program because I tell myself that, parents still got to work and we need a little break sometimes too. But it reverberates. So like the stuff that the kids learn and they engage in during our program, the parents get involved in it because they're always telling when they come home, they're always explaining, like, this is what I learned. And I've noticed with the feedback from the parents that when they go out and they take them to the ocean or they go on a vacation later, that the kids are like, hey, let me point out this fish. Let me point out what this does. And let me tell you about this habitat. So the whole
Mhm.
family becomes involved in these teachings. But I
Yeah.
started Wild Roots, just from a passion of like wanting to spend time with my son and wanting others to discover Playa del Carmen and like all the beauty that we have here, all the cenotes, and then like
Mhm.
we have turtles. You can swim with turtles in Akumal, which is one of the field trips that we go on. So it's been a beautiful journey of entrepreneurship, which of course is just really like self self discovery and self growth. I think bundled into like I'm starting a business, but really I'm working on myself and what are my shadow parts and where do I need to like expand on.
Mhm.
And then it just grew from there. So we do winter break now, and then we're going to do a spring break camp in March as well.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah, I love that. And I love how organically this idea came out and you just like let it happen, right? This is what I feel like our generation comes more and more into this realization. And plus, we have the freedom of doing so because we're stepping out of the system, more like open to adopting new lifestyles and creating new careers and creating new business ideas based on what meets our needs and our children's interests. So I love that you did that for your son. And yeah, I wish there's like many families now listening to this podcast and coming to Playa del Carmen, either now in winter or in March. That sounds fantastic. I'm already like tempted to saying, oh, we should go there. Um,
Well, the ocean is, and that's the other beautiful thing
mm,
about marine biology is it's so different because you're located in Bali, right?
mhm.
And the ocean there and the, the waves and the surfing, that's one type of ocean and marine
Yeah.
life. And then we have the marine life here in Puerto Venturas, you can go deep into the water and still be up to your knees.
Yeah.
So it's super kid friendly, like especially toddler friendly. I have friends with younger babies and they're like, "Well, I'm scared. They don't know how to swim yet." Like
Mhm.
it's so shallow that like they'll love it. They'll splash in there. There's no
Mhm.
problems. I mean, it's such a beautiful experience to travel with children of all ages. And I
Mhm.
really just want to encourage everyone to give it a shot and
Yeah.
lower your expectations. Like just have no expectations and just go and give it a shot. And if
Mhm.
it's not for you, then you can just stay home.
Yeah. Exactly. No, I do remember. Like I traveled extensively through Mexico and then all the way through Belize, Honduras, Nicaragua, all the way down to Ecuador. And then my final that I wanted to reach the Galapagos Islands. And that was before the kids though, right? This was one of my dream routes. Oh, actually, no, it also organically evolved because I was getting cold in Canada and it started snowing. And I was back then with my partner, and I said, I don't like the cold. I just need to leave. And I looked and I was sitting in a Starbucks coffee shop, and I said, where can we go? And pop, it was Cancun. That was the closest, and it was warm, and it was like cheap. And I said, let's go.
Exactly.
That's it. But I do remember like the ocean and the sea life, and I'm a scuba diver. Like I love diving and snorkeling, and yeah. So I totally agree, and I do remember the cenotes, and yes, beautiful place. So you're in for a treat if you follow your nudge. If you listen now and thinking, "Oh, this sounds fun," let's go into the warmth during the upcoming winter months.
Exactly, exactly. And some people that are coming to the camp, there's even like multi-families. So the
Mm,
grandparents are coming and they're all getting together in Playa, and then the kids will have something to do, the adults will have some alone time. So it
mm,
works out perfectly. And there's so many different people that come to town during the high season. So it's a good time to visit for sure.
yeah, sounds fun. Sounds fun. And is this then also like because I read when you filled out the podcast form and you said like rebuilding the village is really something that's a theme or topic that you would like to speak about. Like, is this something that you aim now to do with those camps so that you have more of a connection, and also when people are coming from different countries, I assume that you then stay in contact and learn about their location, and then it's like a ripple, right? You're growing.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have several opportunities for the parents and the whole family and the younger siblings to meet. We do a dinner the Sunday before and all play games and share a meal. And then at the end of the camp, we also have a dinner and some
Mm,
activities. So everybody gets to know each other on a deeper level. And then as far as the village component, I'm super passionate about just village parenting and like you don't have to all do it for yourself. Like ask for help, have like a friend that you do things with your kids. So
mm,
then you have someone, an adult to talk to, and then the kids get really close and maybe the kids will want to have sleepovers or like go on vacations together. I remember one of my favorite memories is going on vacation with my mom's friends. Like
mhm.
her friend took me on vacation with her daughters, and it was such an amazing experience. As far as my dream and like where I'm headed with this, I would love to open up a retreat center of sorts for parents,
Mhm.
specifically single parents, but really any form of families where they have this kind of all-inclusive experience, but it's a very tight-knit home. So
Mhm.
we have the nannies there, we have a chef, and then the parents again can go off and explore, do things on their own during the daytime, and then we have a community dinner in the evenings, and on the weekends and throughout the week we can go on adventures together. So that's where I'm headed as far as the village, and whether that's a week long experience or several weeks or even months. I'm
Mhm.
still kind of like working out the details of like what is the need,
Mhm.
and what is the customer looking for. But that's where I want to be. I want to be living in community with other families and learning about other cultures, because here in Playa there's people from all over Europe, all over the Americas, lots of different languages. Lots of people from South America, which I'm excited to discover more of. I feel like I already know so much about like Chile and Argentina just from meeting people and like going to their posada and eating the different foods. So yeah, it's the village mindset. This is just the beginning, is what I would say.
Mhm. So cool. And it's so funny because I just had two other podcast guests, both individually, like I met also randomly online, and then they come into the podcast and share their vision and what they're doing. And both from Canada and both moving to Nicaragua and both like sharing similar interests. And I said, ladies, this is too close. I need to like let's have hop on a Zoom because I feel like there's so much connection and resonance and everything. And we talked, and they were saying the exact same thing. Like there's gotta be a place where we parents, or especially mompreneurs, right? We How amazing would it be to have such sort of location where we have a co-working space? The kids are taken care of, they play together, they learn together. There's like these things that are in place for everyone to be happy, to be together. The kids can learn from each other and from other adults. And so this is why I also called the Sovereign Mamas brand and the Facebook group the village, right? Because this is this concept that at a certain stage in your life you come to realize it's not about doing it alone and isolation. This is the greatest gift that I feel I'm giving my children as well, and women like you and the other women too, that are realizing that by linking shoulders and saying let's create something together, our children, they're soaking this up and they're so aware of these different cultures, languages, and mindsets, and the conversations we sometimes have at home. Why does this person say this? And that's already so fine-tuning for a global mindset, for a global child, like becoming an adult and really going out and seeing the world as one. And I love this concept so much. So I do see this is a highly in-demand concept, and maybe we even need to see Mexico, Bali, Nicaragua, different hubs.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
why not? We're already living it. So why not give it a little bit of a frame and get more people and families involved and excited about this type of raising children. While we are
Exactly.
also like, and this is, I think this is key, not only raising our children, because yes, it's about them, but it's about us too, right? When you said it before, your son was happy when you were happy, and he will be even when he's a teenager, like more so. I think they can lean
Yes.
on happy, grounded, fulfilled, purpose-driven adults, parents, like if they see that as a role model, what better is there for a child when they come to
Yeah.
the teenage years? Oh my gosh.
That's what they have to aspire to, we're opening up that field of like, this is what's possible to you. Yes, I definitely resonate. I mean, all of those locations I think are have so much beauty, and like the land
Mm.
has so much to teach us. And I personally want to visit them all.
Yeah.
But, going back to my story, it's like, yeah, like sometimes someone is dreaming of doing this lifestyle, or even maybe thinks it might be feasible at some point in time, but then to witness and to just, hey, someone is doing this. Like we're already doing it. We're living it. That's that push sometimes that
Mhm.
people need to be like, okay, I'm gonna go for it. Like if she can do it, I can do it too, or at least I'll give it a shot. And that's what I'm here to do, is like to tell people, to tell women, like it's possible.
Mm.
We're already here. Like join us.
Yeah. Yes, amazing, amazing. I love it. I love it. So we definitely have more meetings and connections. I can feel it that this is not just one podcast interview we're doing. I,
Absolutely.
I'm really loving these connections here. If there's anything else that we would like to maybe give the listener, just like you just said, you are here to inspire. What is it that you feel like anchors in you the most in those moments where you might get sucked back into, the shoulds, the society, the pressure? I don't know how supportive your family was when you did all those things that you did,
Mm.
especially the RV trip. What was it that really gave you this, okay, no, I'm doing this? And so maybe
Mm.
this helps someone else
I
out there.
Yeah, yeah, as far as it's a really good question. I'll answer the one about my family. Um, I think relatively early in my adulthood, I started doing things that didn't really make sense. So they kind of got used to it, I think. I tell myself. I also think that my mom just figured that the RV would just like break down in the middle of Wyoming or something. And then I would just call and be like, hey, I'm going to
You gotta
come
do
back.
it. She'll be
Right,
back.
exactly. Exactly. I think that was her parenting at that point. And then it just months went on, and she was kind of like, okay.
She's not coming
Um,
back.
yeah, she's nothing's happened yet. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough because people have their opinions of where your life should lead, and where you belong. And yeah, I need to come back to my center a lot of times. So sometimes I'll read my journals from before and look at my vision board and just like really hone in. I really block out like the news, and I don't follow accounts of people that like or don't inspire me, that I don't want to like emulate their life, because that's just noise. And I try to kind of, the distractions, I try to take those out of my field and focus on me, and like, what does Dasha want? What does she want today? What does she want for next year? And then I keep coming back to that. And I think, again, coming back to, these catalysts in our lives, which for me was really the death of my son's father, to bring perspective. And I tell myself we all have those moments in our life, but it's again, like you mentioned, it's about quieting yourself enough to hear them, to hear those moments of intuition, and then step in and say, okay, I'm going to take my first step, whatever that baby step is, even if it's just following those accounts on Instagram, or like putting a deposit down for, something a year in advance. And then that's the move, because then it's in the 5D, where we're having these thoughts, we're imagining ourselves in this lifestyle, and then taking that 3D step of actually taking an action. And then it all somehow always ends up coming together.
Yeah. Everything is always working out for us, right? When we,
Yes.
yeah,
There's
Yeah.
a beautiful song I listen to most mornings, and it has that exact phrase.
Is it, I mean, I feel like we're listening to the same podcast and doing the same spiritual, maybe rituals and stuff. But for me, it was Abraham Hicks who was getting me into
Ah,
that, yeah, more and more openness towards spirituality, towards understanding also these concepts that were so foreign because my upbringing and my parents would just not teach me things like that. It was a traditional Catholic upbringing and from a small town village in Germany where people would just follow the path. And it was always those who went to the bigger cities that were like, oh, they were
oh.
those, oh, these are the rule breakers. And for me, I don't know, I feel like it has to be something in our soul imprint already because I relate so much when you said that you were always doing things already like your way and maybe a little bit different than others. I had the same, and I guess this gives us this early testing ground and practicing of why not? Like my way isn't necessarily bad or worse than the mainstream way, right? And once you train that muscle, and especially if you train it
Exactly.
early on, then later on it becomes easier in adulthood to trust yourself because you already know like you can't go wrong when you trust your intuition and your way, right? But yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. Train that muscle. That's
Mhm.
exactly what it is. I mean, with everything,
Yeah.
it's habits. It's creating those habits and then sticking to them. And then all of a sudden you see that your life is completely different.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Oh,
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing this. I really feel like we're hitting a new layer of like yeah, I don't even know how to frame it in a way that does it justice, but I feel there is a higher vibration going on, and all these women, like I said, like I'm getting more and more women on this podcast, and each time I'm like blown away. Same, we're speaking the same language and we're doing the same things, and this makes me so happy because I also don't watch the news, but obviously you kind of get it, like that there is
yeah.
something going on in the world where a lot of people focus on the negative things, and I don't want to be sucked into this. And I'm so happy to see that there is light and it gets stronger. And I do believe that light always conquers the darkness. So let's spread more light. Thank you
Yes.
for spreading your light on the show today. This was really, really interesting. And yeah, I wish you all the best with your camps and your projects. And like I said, let's stay in touch. And yeah, thank you so much. We will link in the show notes to your website so that people can find you and get in contact. And yeah, thanks for being here.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for creating this, for creating a space for us to talk about this and for sovereign mamas. It's an incredible labor of love, and I am blessed that we connected. Thank you.
Yeah, me too. Thanks.